How does your life measure up? Hey guys, welcome aboard every nation as we pursue God together. How are you all doing? I hope you're doing great and well. I think in this season of life, many of us are taking the opportunity to kind of take a step back and really evaluate how our lives are. And if you're anything like me at all, you just might find that regardless of how well you think you're doing or not, life never measures up to just the way we want it. And so our life can always be better. There's always something else that can help make it and take it to the next level. And we're never satisfied. Let me tell you a silly illustration. Now, many years ago, when I first moved out of my parents' house, we moved into a studio, right? And for the first time ever, I had to clean the house. And, it was such a stressful time. I was really getting irritated by the amount of dust that was collecting in the house. And so I thought to myself, what would make my life better? It's a wireless vacuum cleaner. That way I don't have to be plugging in things and dragging them all around the house. So we got one. And it was fantastic. I could go anywhere I wanted, dust whatever it is I could, and the house stayed clean for a while until I thought to myself, what could make my life even better now if someone could do it automatically for me, right? And so, a couple of months later, I got myself a robot vacuum cleaner, right? And this thing was automatic. It could map out the different rooms that were in my house, and it would just do its own thing. And what a fantastic life that was, because the robot was taking care of the daily vacuuming, and I didn't really have to bother it, and I could just leave it alone. And I thought to myself, life is so fantastic now. Until I had dishes to clean. Now, every night there would be piles and piles and loads of dishes to do, and I was getting sick and tired of it. So I thought to myself, what could make my life better right now is a dishwasher. So I did my research, went out and got one, put it into my cabinet, and boy, what a difference it made. I went from having too many dishes to do every night to not enough dishes to fill up the dishwasher. What a fantastic life that is. Until I realized what could make my life even better. A machine that can somehow iron my clothes and fold them up nicely. Wow, I've heard of such things, and hopefully one day I can enjoy such a perfect life where I can be wearing pressed, clean clothes every day. Wouldn't that be wonderful? And so I think that's how life is. Not just in the area of household chores, but really every area of life. Whether that's our finances, whether that's in our relationships, in our jobs, in our careers, in our studies, life can always be better. How do we know this? Well, we just have to look at some of the celebrities in our lives. You see, I think celebrities is just like you and I. But because of their fame and their fortune, they kind of got accelerated along life's track right to the very end. So, if you look at recent examples of tragic celebrity deaths, right? People like Robin Williams, the actor, Anthony Bourdain, the chef, Chester Bennington, the Linkin Park lead singer. What we can tell is that even as successful as they are, having wealth, riches, fortune, fame, it seems like they were still unsatisfied with life. There was something plaguing them. It wasn't enough. In fact, I like this quote by Jim Carrey a lot. And he says, I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that it's not the answer. Even for these celebrities, we know that the answer isn't waiting for them at the end of this life. And I think the same holds true even for our spiritual lives. Now today we look at the book of Mark chapter 10, and in there it talks about James and John, who are brothers. If we were to evaluate James and John's life, I think on an objective sense, they were doing pretty well. And so what recently had happened was, in the last couple of years perhaps, they had a career change. They went from being fishermen to followers of Jesus. And so they became spiritual. They left behind their material jobs, and in every sense of the word, they were really following after Christ. And so these two people, along with Peter, they were considered to be in the inner circle of Jesus, meaning that these were the closest disciples to Jesus. And so they were doing pretty well for themselves, spiritually speaking. But even then, the both of them, they decided that life can be better. So what they did was to find Jesus and ask him for a favor, guaranteeing them future rewards in heaven. Here's what it says in the Bible. In verse 35, "And James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came up to him and said to him, 'Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you.' And he said to them, 'What do you want me to do for you?' And they said to him, 'Grant us to sit one at your right hand and one at your left in your glory.'" They were asking Jesus for future favor, to guarantee them a place of prominence, a place of power, a place of position. And so we see that even in our spiritual lives, we are not exempt from this. And if we look at the other disciples' response to this, we can see what they thought of James and John. And when the 10 heard it, they began to be indignant at James and John. This was the rest of the disciples' response. Why do we do this? It causes us to be unfulfilled in life, to be feeling like we're always kind of missing something. It makes us upset and jealous when someone else gets the promotion, say, gets the bigger house, the bigger car. It causes us to look inwards and be self-centered. It causes us to be discontented, to be discouraged, to be depressed. How then shall we live? Is there a better way to go about this? Let's look at the Bible for answers. Now, Jesus gives us a hint here in the Bible. Verse 42. "And Jesus called them to him and said to them, 'You know that those who are considered rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. But it shall not be so among you.'" What Jesus was saying here is this: the world, in its desire to progress and to earn better lives and to live better lives, have decided to use a system of measurement here in terms of greatness, in terms of being number one. But Jesus says it shall not be so. This is not the way we are to live. In fact, it is a different way of living. And so what Jesus was essentially saying is this: life will never measure up as long as we're using the measuring system of the world. And that could be our natural life and even our spiritual life. And so as long as we continue to use that system of measurement, it will never measure up unless we change the way we measure things. Let me give you an example. During our lockdown moments, I think one of the side effects is everyone is learning how to cook or bake even more. And so I've been trying a couple of pizza recipes lately, but they never turn out exactly the way I want them to, right? It never looks the same way it does as in the pictures that I see online. And I was frustrated. I was trying different recipes, but I could never get it right until someone told me. I Googled it. I found out from a forum, Reddit somewhere, and it says that the reason why I've not been getting consistent results, the results that I want to see, is because I've been measuring my ingredients the wrong way. You see, what pro bakers will say, that instead of using measuring cups like this, and I was fumbling with different cups, you gotta get rid of these cups altogether. The right way to measure ingredients for baking is to actually use a measuring scale. And so once I knew that, I got myself a scale and started measuring the ingredients by weight. And as I do that, my results were consistent one after another. And so I've been making beautiful vegan pizzas. You guys gotta try it. But what I'm trying to say here is we've got to change the way that we measure our lives. So now you may be asking, how does Jesus measure life? Well, let's look to the Bible. In verse 43, Jesus says, "But it shall not be so among you, but whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be slave of all." If the world measures life in units of greatness and being number one, God measures life in terms of slaves and servants. Not how many servants you have, but how many people you serve. What I think all of us can do is this. Every time we're measuring life, we're evaluating, we're seeing where we are, where we can go, don't measure upwards. Don't measure where can we go, what can we achieve, what else can better our life, but measure downwards. How many more people can we serve? And we can serve a lot of people. In seasons like this, when we're facing a global pandemic, there are many needs out there and different churches are doing different things. So come on board with us to serve people together, because there are people who are in need, but there are also a lot of people who need God's love. And by doing that, God will not only transform our lives, we'll be happier, more grateful, more fulfilled, we'll change the way we see life, but it's also a way to get closer to Jesus. And it makes sense when you think about it, because in order to get closer to Jesus, we have to go where He is. And where is Jesus? Let's look at the Bible. "For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give His life as a ransom for many." And so you see, Jesus, who is King of Kings and Lord of Lords, who owns an eternal kingdom, His very purpose is not to be served, but to serve. We can kind of think of it like this, that if we want to get close to Jesus, He's not so much up there as He is down here, that He is among us, serving people. So naturally, when we serve others, we get closer to Jesus as well. How will this play out in our lives? I think we can begin to imagine. So everyone, do this with me, okay? Close your eyes, take deep breaths, and imagine a world where everyone was using this kind of upside down measuring system to measure life. What would that look like? If people were fighting over one another in who they get to serve, wouldn't that transform our society completely? Wouldn't that change the way we fundamentally think and live? And think of the transformation in our very own lives, the amount of fulfillment, the amount of satisfaction and wholeness that's going to be there. And to top that off, we get to walk closer to Jesus. When the Bible says the seat on His right and the seat on His left, those spots are reserved for the best servants and the best slaves. Wouldn't that kind of world be absolutely amazing place to live in? Of course it would. And here's the really good news. It's not just some far-off dream or fantasy. This is exactly the kingdom that Jesus is going to fully establish when He returns. And remember, it's not how many servants you have, but how many people you serve. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction and to keep oneself unstained from the world. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that encourages all of you. And until we meet in the next one, safe journeys.